The tapping on my study window was not random. 3 slow taps, then silence, then 3 again. I had not slept in 3 nights, but I knew I was awake. I knew this sound was real. When I lifted my head from the desk, the room felt heavy, like it was judging me. Maps were everywhere. Forests circled in red ink, roads marked and crossed out, places my 6-year-old son might be hiding, or places he might never come back from. I stood and moved toward the window. Outside, standing perfectly still, was a German shepherd. Big, clean, strong. Its amber eyes were locked on mine like it knew me. My son, Paulo, had been missing for 72 hours. He vanished inside my own estate. One moment, the nanny was with him. 10 minutes later, she returned with warm milk, and his room was empty. No broken locks, no alarms triggered, no ransom calls, no threats, just silence. Silence is worse than enemies. Silence eats you alive. The dog tapped again, harder this time. Not begging, not afraid, waiting. I whispered my son's name like a prayer I no longer believed in. The dog did not move. It only stared, and something in its eyes reminded me of my wife. She used to look at me like that when she knew something I did not. She died a year ago from cancer. She was the light in my life. Paulo was what she left behind. I opened the window. Cold forest air rushed in, smelling of wet earth and pine. The dog stepped back exactly 3 steps and turned toward the trees, then looked back at me. It wanted me to follow. Every instinct I had told me this was a trap. I built my life on instincts, but what choice does a father have when his child is gone? I grabbed my jacket and did not call my men. They were trained killers, but they were useless against this kind of pain. Outside, the morning fog clung to the ground. My shoes soaked instantly as I stepped onto the grass. The dog waited until I reached the tree line, then moved forward at a steady pace, never rushing, never slowing. The forest swallowed us. I had lived beside these woods for 8 years and never walked this deep inside. Trees rose like walls. Sound disappeared. My breathing was loud in my ears, my lungs burning from years of stress and cigarettes. The dog moved like it belonged here. It looked back often, making sure I was still alive. After 20 minutes, we reached a small clearing near a creek. The dog stopped and stared at me again. I nodded without knowing why. Then it crossed the water using stones I had not even seen. The forest grew darker as we climbed. Ferns covered the ground. Moss climbed every rock. This place felt old, untouched. This was the kind of wilderness my wife loved. She used to disappear into nature and come back peaceful. I never asked where she went. The dog suddenly froze. I reached for my gun out of habit, then stopped. Hanging from a low branch was a small blue jacket. Paulo's jacket. I rushed forward and grabbed it. It was still warm. I pressed it to my face and broke apart. My son had been here, alive, recently. The dog sat quietly, giving me space. That was when I saw the cabin. It looked like it had grown out of the forest. Stone walls, old wood shutters, a roof damaged by time, but still standing. It was hidden behind vines and neglect. The dog walked straight to the door and scratched once. Inside, the cabin was dry and clean. Someone had been here. A blanket folded neatly. Ash still warm in the fireplace. Jars of herbs lined the shelves. The dog went to a wooden chest under the window and scratched again. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were photographs. The first one made my heart stop. A young girl stood in this same forest, smiling. I knew that smile. I married it. I watched it fade in hospital rooms. It was my wife. Young, happy, surrounded by people I had never seen before. I dropped to my knees. More photos followed. Her growing up here. Teaching children. Sitting by fires. Even our wedding. These people were there, watching. I never noticed them. My entire life with her suddenly felt like half a story. The dog came closer and rested its head against my hand. I heard a sound outside and stood up fast. At the edge of the clearing stood a woman, barefoot, calm, watching me like she had been waiting. The dog walked to her and leaned against her leg. She placed her hand on its head. They knew each other. "Where is my son?" I asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She shook her head gently and touched her throat. She could not speak. Then she pointed deeper into the forest and nodded. My chest tightened, with fear and hope crashing together. She turned and walked away. The dog stayed beside me until I followed. We climbed higher. The forest grew thicker. Then she dropped to her knees and crawled into what looked like solid bushes. I followed. On the other side was something impossible. A hidden valley, cabins, gardens, smoke rising from chimneys, people living quietly, hidden from the world. And then I saw him, Paulo. He was sitting by a fire, weaving something from branches. He looked healthy, calm, safe. I shouted his name. He stood slowly and walked toward me, stopping just short. "I'm not lost, Papa," he said softly. "I came here on purpose." My world cracked open. An elderly woman approached and looked at me like she could see everything I was, and everything I feared. "Your wife was my granddaughter," she said. This was her home. The truth crushed me. My wife had lived 2 lives, one with me, one here. The dog sat beside Paulo, watching me closely. Before I could speak, voices echoed from the forest behind me. My men. And in that moment, I understood. Following the dog was only the beginning. The voices behind me grew louder. I recognized them immediately. My men. Trained. Loyal. Dangerous. If they stepped into this valley, everything my wife had hidden would be exposed. This place would be marked, studied, eventually destroyed. The elderly woman grabbed my wrists with strength that surprised me. Her eyes were sharp and afraid. "You cannot let them see this place," she said. "Not ever." Paulo stood beside the silent woman, clutching her hand. His eyes were wide, not with fear of these people, but fear of me. That hurt more than anything. I moved fast. I turned and pushed through the bushes the way I came. Thorns tore at my skin. I did not care. I emerged on the forest side, just as Marco appeared through the trees, weapon drawn. "Boss," he said, relief flooding his voice. "You scared the hell out of us." "I told you not to follow me," I said sharply. "We were worried. You disappeared without backup. This area isn't safe." I stepped closer so he would not look past me. My heart was beating so hard I thought he could hear it. "I needed to be alone," I said. "This is personal, my wife's past." Marco studied my face. He knew me too well. He saw the scratches, the dirt, the way my hands shook. "Did you find the kid?" "Yes," I said. "He's alive." The relief hit them all at once. One of the men crossed himself. Another let out a breath he had been holding for days. "Where is he?" Marco asked. "He's safe," I said. "And he stays that way if you turn around right now." Marco hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, but if you're not back by nightfall, I'm coming back with everyone." "That won't be necessary," I said. "Go." They left. Every step they took away from the valley felt like borrowed time. When I crawled back through the bushes, the people were already moving. Children were being led inside. Fires covered, paths erased like they had never existed. The silent woman watched me carefully. "You chose," the elderly woman said. "Good." Paulo ran to me then. He wrapped his arms around my waist like he was afraid I would disappear again. "I didn't want to scare you, Papa," he said. "Mama told me about this place. She said if I ever felt unsafe, I should come here. My wife had planned this. She had known. They gave me food, real food, fresh bread, warm soup. My hands shook as I ate. My body finally realized how tired I was. That night, they showed me her journal, page after page in her handwriting. Her thoughts, her fears, her hope that one day I would understand why she could not fully belong to my world. She wrote about me with love and worry mixed together. She loved me, but she did not trust the life I led. That truth burned. The silent woman sat beside me by the fire. She handed me a cup of tea my wife used to drink. I had always thought it came from a fancy shop. It came from here. I slept that night in a small cabin. No guards. No locks. Just forest sounds and the quiet breathing of my son beside me. For the first time since my wife died, I slept without dreams. In the morning, I worked. They handed me tools. Shovels. Wood. Real work. My hands blistered. My back ached. But something inside me loosened. Paulo laughed when he saw me struggle. I laughed too. The silent woman worked beside me. She corrected me with gestures, taught me without words. Her name was Iris. She was calm in a way I had never seen, strong without violence. Days passed. I went back to the city to keep appearances. I came back to the valley when I could. I told my men I was grieving, that I needed space. They believed me. Then, one afternoon, everything almost collapsed. A man from a rival family appeared at the valley entrance. Armed. Smiling, he recognized me instantly. "What is this place?" he asked. My blood turned cold. Before I could speak, Iris stepped forward. She signed rapidly. The elderly woman translated. "This is a protected environmental research area," she said. "Federally documented. Any threats here will bring government attention." It was a lie, but it sounded real. The man hesitated. He left. That night, Iris took my hand for the first time. Not romantic, not soft, a promise. I understood then. This place was not just my wife's secret. It was her test. And I was standing in the middle of it, deciding who I would become. I knew the lie would not hold forever. Men like the one who found the valley do not forget things like this. They remember locations, faces, weak points. They wait. I started planning the same night. Back in the city, I watched my organization like a stranger. Meetings felt louder. Violence felt pointless. I saw how every decision I made sent ripples that could one day reach Paulo. That scared me more than any enemy. My father noticed first. "You've changed," he said during one meeting. "You hesitate now." "I think," I replied. He laughed like thinking was weakness. That night, I returned to the valley. Iris was waiting. She did not ask questions. She never pushed. She only listened with her eyes. I told her everything. My enemies, my father, the danger growing closer. She wrote slowly in her notebook and showed me the words. "Power does not disappear, it moves. Decide where yours should live." The valley was not helpless. That was my biggest mistake. It was hidden, yes, but it was also prepared. Traps that left no marks, paths that erased themselves, signals made of bird calls and smoke patterns. My wife had helped build these systems. She had been preparing for me without my knowledge. Paulo thrived there. He learned to plant, to listen, to be quiet without fear. He slept without nightmares. One evening, he asked me something that broke my heart. "Papa, do you like who you are in the city or who you are here?" I did not answer because the truth was too loud. Then the pressure came. My father started moving against me, quietly, taking territory, testing loyalty, waiting for me to respond with violence. I did not. That made him angry. Marco warned me late one night. "He's building support. If you don't strike first, he will." Quote, I looked at Paulo sleeping beside the fire that same night and understood something clearly. If I fought, the valley would burn someday. If I stayed silent, it would be found. So I did the one thing my father never taught me. I changed the game. I met with rival families. Not with threats. With information. Legal pressure. Quiet deals that removed incentives for war. I gave up territory willingly. Pieces of power that once defined me. They thought I was weak. I let them. Behind the scenes, I dismantled my empire slowly. Redirected money. Closed violent operations. Turned enemies against each other without lifting a gun. The man who found the valley came back for his favor. I made sure he never spoke of it again. When my father finally confronted me, I told him the truth. I choose my son. He called me a traitor. I walked away. The valley remained hidden. Paulo remained safe. And Iris stood beside me, her hand steady on my arm, reminding me that silence can be stronger than fear. The dog watched us from the edge of the trees, calm and knowing. I finally understood why it had chosen me. Not because I was powerful, but because I was willing to change. The night my father tried to kill me, the valley was silent. No birds, no wind. Even the fire burned low, like it knew something bad was coming. I was sitting outside the cabin with Iris, watching Paulo sleep through the open window, when the dog stood up suddenly. Its ears went sharp, its body stiff. Danger. I did not need words to understand. Iris looked at me, then toward the forest edge. She signed one short sentence, slow and clear. "They found you." My chest tightened, but my mind stayed calm. This was the moment everything had been leading toward. You do not leave a life like mine without consequences. I touched Paulo's hair once, gently, then stood. The valley moved without panic. That was the difference between my world and this one. No shouting, no fear. People disappeared into shadows like smoke. Paths shifted. Fires died. The elderly woman appeared beside me like she had been waiting her whole life for this night. "It will end here," she said, "one way or another." Quote. Lights flickered between trees, flashlights, controlled, professional. My father did not send amateurs. I walked forward alone. The dog followed. When we reached the clearing edge, I raised my hands. The flashlights froze. Then he stepped out. My father, older, harder, still dangerous. "I knew you were hiding something," he said. "I just didn't expect this." His eyes moved over the forest, the land, the silence. "You chose this over blood," he said. "I chose my son," I replied. He laughed. "That boy will be a weakness. Someone will always use him against you." "Not if there's nothing left to take," I said. He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done," I said calmly. "No territory, no wars, no throne to fight over." "You think that saves you?" he snapped. "You think walking away makes you free?" "No," I said. "It makes him free." I stepped aside. Paulo walked forward. My father froze. The valley lights came up slowly, not bright, just enough. Faces everywhere, men, women, children, watching, witnesses. This was not a place you could burn quietly. Paulo looked at my father with curiosity, not fear. "Are you my grandfather?" he asked. The question cracked something old and ugly. My father looked at him for a long moment. Then he turned back to me. "You planned this," he said. "You stripped me of excuses." "I learned from the best," I said. He understood then. Violence here would not protect him. It would expose him, destroy everything he had left. He backed away one step, then another. "This isn't over," he said. "It is," I replied. He left without another word. When the forest swallowed him, the valley breathed again. I fell to my knees. Iris was there instantly, her hands on my shoulders. Solid. Real. I cried that night for everything I had lost and everything I almost destroyed. For my wife. For the man I used to be. For the son who deserved better. Weeks passed. Then, months. I sold what remained of my empire, piece by piece. Not loudly. Not dramatically. I let others think they were winning. I became invisible. The valley became home. Paulo grew stronger, kinder, smarter. He learned both worlds but belonged fully to neither. That was okay. Neither did I. Iris and I never rushed. Grief does not like to be hurried. But one evening, sitting beneath the old cedar tree where my wife once wrote, Iris leaned her head against my shoulder. I rested my cheek against her hair. That was enough. The dog lay at our feet, old now, peaceful. One morning, Paulo asked me something simple. "Papa, are you happy?" I thought about it. "I am honest," I said. That's better. Years later, when people whispered about a mafia boss who vanished without a trace, They never looked here. They never saw the man teaching his son how to plant trees. They never saw the woman who spoke without words and loved without fear. They never knew that redemption does not come loud. Sometimes it arrives with 3 taps on a window. And a dog who knows the way home.